In the rhythm of South Korean life, there exists a gesture so subtle yet profound. It speaks before words ever do. A bow. Simple, quiet, universal. It is not merely politeness. It is philosophy in motion. Through a gentle tilt of the body, respect flows like water, bridging generations, beliefs, and hearts. To bow is to acknowledge another's humanity, to say, "I see you." Across streets, classrooms, and boardrooms, this tradition endures, unchanged by time or technology. Today, we journey through the meaning, history, and beauty behind one of Korea's most graceful expressions, where humility becomes harmony and gesture becomes soul. A South Korean bow begins long before the body bends. It starts in the heart. It is a silent promise of humility, born from centuries of respect woven into daily life. In every dip of the head lies acknowledgement, not submission. To bow is to equalize, to meet others with grace rather than dominance. It is how strangers become companions, and how respect becomes the common language of a people. In Korea, greetings are not just spoken, they are performed. When two individuals meet, their words are framed by movement. The body lowers, the gaze softens, and sincerity flows without sound. Whether a student greeting a teacher, a child acknowledging an elder, or business partners meeting for the first time, the act is the same: graceful, grounded, intentional. A bow reflects one's inner character, revealing discipline and awareness beyond expression. The depth of the bow reveals more than formality, it mirrors intention. A slight nod may suffice among peers, but a deeper bow carries weight, an offering of genuine respect. In each instance, posture becomes poetry, and etiquette becomes art. Though simple in motion, the bow encapsulates Korea's greatest virtues: harmony, self-awareness, and empathy. It speaks of a nation that values the space between people, where understanding grows without confrontation. The gesture reminds us that communication isn't always about volume. It can live in silence, carried through grace. In an age where speed defines connection, the Korean bow remains deliberate, almost timeless. It invites pause, reflection, acknowledgement. It is a daily reminder that respect, at its purest, needs no words. It only needs intent. Long before modern Seoul rose from the banks of the Han River, another foundation shaped the soul of Korea: Confucianism. More than a philosophy, it became a way of living, teaching that harmony begins not with power, but with respect. Every bow traces its lineage to this ancient thread: the belief that virtue resides in humility and that acknowledging others honors the balance of the world. In the Confucian order, relationships form the architecture of life: ruler and subject, parent and child, teacher and student. Each role is guided by propriety, or yi, the principle of correct behavior. Through yi, Koreans learn that how one moves, speaks, and greets reflects one's moral depth. A bow, therefore, is not empty ritual. It is an act of moral alignment, a silent recital of harmony. Within the royal courts of Joseon, this philosophy became law. Scholars bowed to their kings, sons bowed to their fathers, and students to their mentors. Each gesture reinforced a shared truth: that respect sustains order, and order nurtures peace. Even today, this rhythm beats in Korean hearts, echoing through classrooms, homes, and offices alike. Yet Confucianism's power was never in rules alone. It lived in the quiet reverence between people, the moment one lowers their gaze, offering humility without loss of pride. It taught that true strength lies not in standing tall, but in knowing when to bend. And so, through centuries, the bow endured, not as subservience, but as grace in motion. To bow is to remember that every encounter is sacred, every person a mirror of one's own humanity. In this simple gesture, the ancient and the modern still meet, a thread unbroken, binding past to present in quiet, enduring respect. In the age of dynasties, when kings ruled from gilded palaces and scholars carried scrolls instead of screens, etiquette was the invisible language that shaped Korean life. From the marble halls of Gyeongbokgung Palace to the humble courtyards of peasant homes, the bow was more than formality. It was the choreography of respect that united every class and generation. In the royal court, precision was everything. Courtiers bowed at exact angles, their movements deliberate and graceful, each gesture measured to honor both position and presence. The depth of one's bow revealed not just rank, but sincerity. A shallow nod for equals, a deep, extended bow for elders or rulers. These nuances formed an unspoken dialogue of loyalty and decorum. But beyond palace walls, among farmers and craftsmen, the bow took on a gentler rhythm. Neighbors bowed to one another at sunrise. Merchants greeted customers with a humble dip of the head, and travelers offered a bow to strangers on dusty roads. It was etiquette democratized, the same grace shared from king to commoner, binding the nation in mutual respect. Mothers taught their children the art of the bow before they learned to write. Bow with your heart, they would say, not just your head. And so the gesture became instinct, an inheritance passed down through generations, as natural as breathing. Through centuries of shifting empires, the bow remained constant, a bridge across status, time, and circumstance. It carried the essence of who Koreans were, proud yet polite, strong yet selfless. In every lowered gaze and folded hand, a story was told, of dignity that did not demand attention and respect that did not need words. In ancient Korea, to bow was not submission. It was acknowledgement, a graceful confession of shared humanity. The 20th century brought storms that would test Korea's traditions like never before. As foreign powers cast their shadows over the peninsula, the ancient rhythm of bowing met a world that sought to silence it. During the years of Japanese occupation, the bow became a tool of control, twisted from a gesture of mutual respect into one of enforced obedience. What was once sacred became political, and every tilt of the head carried the weight of survival. Yet even in suppression, Koreans adapted. They bowed still, but not in surrender. In marketplaces and back alleys, subtle gestures reclaimed meaning. A softer bend of the neck between neighbors became a quiet rebellion, a way of saying, "We remember who we are." Tradition endured in whispers, hidden in plain sight, carried in the smallest of courtesies that no empire could erase. When liberation came, the bow once again found its true form, not as subjugation, but as sovereignty. It returned to weddings and funerals, temples and classrooms, woven seamlessly into the fabric of daily life. The act that had been manipulated by foreign rule now stood as a symbol of Korea's restored dignity. In the years that followed, modernization arrived like a rush of wind. Western greetings, handshakes, and nods began to mingle with ancient customs. But the bow, quiet and graceful, refused to fade. It evolved instead, standing tall beside skyscrapers and flashing neon signs, as timeless as the mountains that watched over Seoul. Through hardship and reinvention, the bow remained Korea's compass, pointing not backward, but inward. It reminded the nation that respect, once lost, can always be reclaimed, not through power, but through poise. For even under occupation, the Korean spirit never stopped bowing, not in defeat, but in defiance. In the heart of modern Seoul, where glass towers pierce the sky and LED screens paint the night, the bow still survives, ancient yet adaptable. It greets the digital age not as a relic of the past, but as a rhythm that keeps time with progress. In subways, offices, and even through the glow of smartphone screens, Koreans bow, a gentle nod, a slight tilt, a reflection of grace that technology has not erased. In a nation of speed, where minutes matter and automation defines routine, the bow has learned to evolve. The full, deep bends once reserved for formal ceremonies are now often replaced by subtle inclinations, efficient yet sincere. A brief bow at the entrance of a cafe, a quick nod in an elevator, a polite dip before a business meeting. Each one carries the same silent promise. I see you. I respect you. Technology, too, has found its place in this ritual. Virtual meetings begin with a mirrored bow before the camera. Animated characters in Korean games greet with that same gentle motion. Even in the metaverse, avatars tilt their heads in courtesy, echoing the gestures of ancestors who bowed beneath temple eaves centuries ago. And yet, this modern bow is more than etiquette, it is adaptation. It bridges the gap between machine and human, between ancient honor and present-day innovation. It is proof that progress in Korea doesn't erase tradition. It refines it, translating old values into new expressions. In every bowed head beneath the city's electric glow lies a story, not of submission, but of balance. A reminder that even in the age of algorithms, humility remains the most powerful form of connection. From sunrise to sunset, the bow is woven into the rhythm of everyday Korean life. It begins early, as children bow to their parents before leaving home, a gesture of gratitude and respect that frames the day. At schools, students bow to their teachers before class begins, acknowledging not authority, but guidance. It is not ceremony. It is communication, a wordless language of humility that flows through generations. In the busy streets of Seoul or the quiet lanes of Jeonju, the bow appears almost instinctively. Shopkeepers bow to customers entering and leaving. Waiters offer a polite nod with every thank you, and strangers exchange small bows when paths cross. Even a quick incline of the head carries weight, an acknowledgement that every encounter, no matter how brief, holds value. In workplaces, the bow becomes choreography, a precise, almost elegant display of professionalism and respect. A junior employee bows slightly deeper to a senior, while a manager bows in return, mirroring equality and acknowledgement. At weddings, funerals, and ancestral rites, bows transform into symbols of devotion and remembrance, a bridge between the living and those who came before. But the beauty of the bow is in its sincerity. It is not demanded, nor performed for show. It is felt. Each bow carries an emotional undercurrent, gratitude, empathy, respect, that words cannot always convey. In this, it mirrors the heart of Korean culture, outwardly calm, inwardly profound. Even as the world moves faster and greetings become emojis or text, the bow endures. It reminds every Korean, from the youngest child to the oldest elder, that no matter how modern life becomes, true respect requires presence. To bow is to pause, to acknowledge, to connect. Not every bow is the same, and not every bow needs words. In South Korea, the motion of lowering one's head is more than habit. It is a mirror of emotion. A shallow nod may say hello, but a deep, lingering bow can express sorrow, gratitude, or apology. The bow becomes a language of silence, where sincerity is measured not by sound, but by depth and stillness. In moments of apology, the bow transforms into confession. A celebrity facing scandal, a worker admitting error, or a child seeking forgiveness. Each bends deeply, holding the posture as if time itself has paused. The act humbles both giver and receiver. It is a reminder that in Korea, dignity is not lost in humility, it is found in it. There is also the bow of gratitude, the quiet thank you exchanged after kindness or support. It is gentle, almost invisible, but felt deeply by those who understand. At times, a bow can even speak affection between friends, colleagues, or generations, carrying emotions too complex for words. It is a universal gesture within the Korean soul, subtle but powerful. Perhaps the most profound bows are those unseen, before ancestral altars or at graves, where words fall away and only reverence remains. In those moments, the bow becomes prayer. It connects the living with the past, turning grief into gratitude and memory into meaning. The unspoken beauty of the Korean bow lies in its honesty. It does not demand attention, it commands reflection. Each tilt of the head is a moment of recognition, of one's place in the world, of shared humanity, of silent understanding. In a culture that values harmony over noise, the bow remains Korea's quietest, yet most eloquent, voice. At the heart of every bow lies something timeless, a truth that transcends gesture and age. In South Korea, the final bow is not just an act of respect. It is a reflection of an entire way of life. It speaks of humility in victory, grace in failure, and gratitude in every encounter. To bow is to remember that dignity does not come from pride, but from acknowledgement of others, of history, of the moment itself. When South Koreans bow, they are not simply performing tradition. They are participating in a living dialogue between past and present. The ancestors who taught reverence through Confucian ideals, the teachers who guided discipline, the families who nurtured respect, all live within that small motion of lowering one's head. It is a gesture shaped by centuries, yet alive in every heartbeat of the modern nation. Even as digital screens replace face-to-face contact, the bow endures. Online meetings begin with a nod, robots are programmed to bow, and students still rise and bend toward their elders before learning begins. It has evolved, but never disappeared. The world around Korea may change, but respect remains its foundation stone. And perhaps, that is the truest meaning of the bow. It is not submission, but balance. It is how a nation so advanced still holds onto its soul. Each bow is a quiet bridge between people, between generations, between time itself. In the end, to bow is to say, I see you. I honor you. It is Korea's softest language, one of grace, gratitude, and understanding. In that silence, the world feels still, and for a moment, perfectly human. In the quiet dip of a bow, South Korea reminds the world that respect is not weakness, it is strength refined by time. The gesture that began in ancient courts now lives in every street, school, and smile. It is a language of humility that needs no translation, a reminder that greatness begins with grace. This has been After Time. The bowing greetings. Why do South Koreans bow to greet strangers? If this story moved you, remember to like, share, and subscribe, because here, every gesture tells a story, and every story finds its voice.